by proceeding with the items that are non-voting items. The City of Norfolk will get us to the quorum, that we have RSVPs from both Norfolk and Portsmouth that they'll be joining us. So, sir, I'd recommend that we would have to skip over the action items, so we could skip over approval of the agenda, and we could receive public comments.
Okay, I'm glad to see public. Is there any submitted?
No submitted public comments. Is there anyone that's present that would like to address the HRTPO Board today?
All right, seeing none, we'll close the public comment period. And Mr. Crum, you want to do your report?
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. So just a couple of items. First off, at everybody's place, hopefully you'll pick up and take home your challenge coin. That ought to be at everybody's place today. If it's not, please see Kelly. She has some others. Just a little something we're doing for the PDC and the TPO and our partners in the community. My monthly report is enclosed for your review. I'd be happy to respond to any questions or comments. I did want to bring your attention to one item. On May the 4th, Star Wars Day, the Hampton Roads Transportation Planning Organization's Regional Transit Advisory Panel, or RTAP, coordinated with our regional transit systems, HRT and WADA, to hold a regional transit advocacy day. We were very excited about that day. It was a great success. I want to thank the HRT staff for their help and assistance. There were a ton of logistics to work out that day. Also want to thank the WADA team for coming down and being part of that day. We had 60 to 70 members of our RTAP and also other community partners who rode the HRT system throughout the middle of the day. We met at about 10 a.m. and we rode the light rail. We rode it down to their light rail maintenance train shed, where we got a great briefing from the HRT team on all things transit, on their system. We heard from WADA as well. And then we sort of experienced the day of what it's like to move around on the public transit system in Hampton Roads. So we walked a little, didn't we, folks, right? We walked the bus stops, we rode buses, we transferred to their downtown transfer center, we walked some more, we caught another bus, and we eventually made our way over to the HRT headquarters, where we held about 70 of us welcomed Congressman Bobby Scott and a couple of state legislators and other important community partners, and we held an advocacy event. So, and then had a debrief about what everybody experienced throughout that day. So, Mr. Chairman, maybe I'll just ask, I know Amy Jordan is representing HRT today, we have WADA present, just if they had any reactions to the day overall.
Thank you, Chairman. Is this on? Appreciate you asking. We just appreciated everybody that attended. It was a really great event. It was the first time that we had done something like this. We look forward to doing it next year. We did have Congressman Bobby Scott was able to join us, and a lot of other esteemed elected officials. So we really appreciate the focus on advocating for transit and why it's so important, and everybody getting to actually experience the system through what it's like to be your rider.
And the WADA staff was present as well. Mr. Scott, I don't know if you've been any comment.
No, nothing further. It was time well spent.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes my report for today.
All right, we'll now move to agenda item number 5. Mr. Stamp for an update from CTB.
Yes, sir. Regarding the 2024 to 2029 6-year improvement program, the CTB, VDOT, and DRPP held public hearings and draft program in all 9 VDOT districts. We held the Hampton Roads public hearing on April the 20th, District Office of Suffolk. We have our CTB meeting will be next week, as code generally follows immediately precedes this meeting. It won't be until next week, and those agenda items are posted online at the CTB's website. At the CTB meeting, there'll be presentations on round 5 smart scale consensus scenario and an update on the smart scale program review. CTB will take action on the round 5 smart scale consensus scenario, the action meeting on the 24th of this month. And the final 2024-2029 6-year improvement program will be presented to CTB for approval at our June 19th meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Stamp. Mr. Hall, VDOT.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much, and I am very excited to report that we have completed about 70 feet of tunnel. So the machine is in the ground, we started to drive towards Hampton. We're closing in on the first 100 feet of permanent tunnel. We'll be installing the 4th permanent ring in the tunnel this morning, so well underway and really excited about that. Also, we had a chance to brief all of our military installation commanders earlier this week, the HRTPO Board, and I want to thank the TPO and staff for helping us set that up. Very well received. That's all I have.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Hall. Let's move back to agenda item number 2 and go back to the approval of our agenda now that we have a quorum. I'll entertain a motion to approve your agenda. Okay. Moved and seconded. Mr. Shepherd, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. And it is carried. Very good. We will continue on the agenda with Mr. Sparks for an update.
Good morning. We are focused on our 6-year improvement program right now, accepting public comments, as we said earlier, and our public comments are open until next Wednesday, May 24th. That's all I have.
Good. Thank you, sir. VPRA, Thelma Drake.
Thank you. We actually meet next week, next Thursday, but in the meantime, the board has approved the leasing of space in Northern Virginia because of all the improvements. You all know about Long Bridge and the improvements to 95. So that's in place, as well as the contract with Finley Horn to oversee all of these massive projects that are taking place. The key priority is getting Northern Virginia straight, so all the rest of us can get through it.
That is a loaded statement indeed. Thank you so much. Pardon me. We'll move now to the VPA update. Barb Nelson.
Good morning. Glad to be here. The Port of Virginia continues to have record volumes and competing very well with ports across the country. Our $1.4 billion worth of investments are being made to ensure that we can continue to provide exceptional levels of service for attracting economic opportunity to the region and to the Commonwealth. We've just released our FY22 Economic Impact Report. This is a report we did a previous one in 21, FY21. Prior to that, it was FY18. The numbers are really pretty impressive. Employment, both full-time and part-time employment across the Commonwealth. It accounts, port-related employment accounts for nearly 11% of total employment in Virginia, coming in at 565,000 jobs, and it's an increase of 29% over the last fiscal year. Our state and local taxes are up 110%, logging in at $5.8 billion, which is 8% of the Commonwealth's, of all of the Commonwealth's state and local taxes. And finally, our gross state product, the port's contribution to that is $63 billion, up 33%, and logging in at 10% of the GSP for the Commonwealth. And so to the Hampton Roads region, we say thank you for your support and participation in creating this economic opportunity for the Commonwealth. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nelson. Move now to our transit agencies update. Amy Jordan, once again.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. It's my honor to provide HRT's briefing on behalf of Mr. William Harrell, President and CEO of Hampton Roads Transit. First, on Monday, May 15th, HRT launched its second 757 express route Customers can now board Route 114 every 15 minutes during rush hour, giving commuters greater flexibility when using transit service to get to work, appointments, and other destinations. Route 114 services downtown Hampton, Coliseum Central, Mercury Boulevard, and the Newmarket area. Route 112, which runs along Jefferson Avenue, Newport News, launched in October, has seen a 20% ridership growth since its launch as the 757 Express. So we are looking forward to seeing similar success along the Route 114. Also on Sunday, May 14th, HRT's VB Wave Trolley and Bayfront Shuttle service officially began carrying passengers for the 2023 summer season. This marks the 39th season in operation. All 14 trolleys did undergo a full restoration during the off-season, and we were looking forward to carrying over 130,000 residents, tourists, and visitors to attractions along the oceanfront and bayfront area. I will mention also on Juneteenth, we will have another free fare day. So please, if you haven't tried transit, encourage you to, and encourage others to get out there and try it. And tomorrow is National Bike to Work Day. So I also encourage you to join me in biking to work. I will not bike through the HRBT. I'll bike to our Hampton office box. So. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Jordan. That's probably a safe bet as well, so thank you so much. Our WADA update, Mr. Scalia.
Hey, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Also, in recognition of National Bike to Work Day, we'll provide free fare for those who bring their bikes to the buses. But also other activities for WADA. We continue with our design and approval for two major construction projects, our operations maintenance facility, and then a northern transfer center. We will start our mobile ticketing app as a great resource for our riders on July 1st. And significantly, we will be assuming the Colonial Williamsburg routes from the Colonial Williamsburg Foundation. They are getting out of the bus business. So we'll pick up that route. Tricorn has not included. That is September 10th. The good news, an additional benefit to us for this is that their drivers will be coming over to be WADA employees in greater numbers than would be required for us to pick up that route. So we envision being able to grow some of our services to where we need them to be and used to be pre-pandemic. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, sir. All right, for our next update, our FTAC update, Mr. Everly.
Yes, good morning. Thank you. Just one item today. This week, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration is conducting its first of 3 blitzes, safety blitzes on trucking companies. So the 2 major inspection areas are the effectiveness of their ABS systems and also cargo securement. This is day 3, so we expect hopefully that the results will be good. That's my only item today.
Good. Thank you, sir. Next up for the United States Navy, Mr. King.
Mr. Chairman, nothing for the group today. Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Thank you very much. Our airport representative update, Mr. Pyramid. Good morning.
Good morning. Happy to announce that we had another record month in April. And in terms of passengers, our highest April in the history of the airport. So continuing to going along very well there. Probably a couple of the big things here is we also were successful at shortening our runway overnight last night and had our first arrivals and departures on our temporary shortened runway while we reconstruct the runway in. So that has come off very successfully. And then probably the big news is that we are launching tomorrow morning our first flights to Los Angeles direct on Breeze. Invite anyone who'd like to come out for that. We have a press conference at 10 a.m. The launch is at 9:15 for that inaugural launch of Breeze to Los Angeles. And then following behind that, our normal launch to Las Vegas. So we now have 2 stretching across the continent. And then probably the only other news is today, about at 1 o'clock, we have our pre-proposal meeting with our hotel, potential hotel vendors and developers. We have over 50 people signed up to come and attend that, which is a very good turnout. We're anticipating a lot of competition for our new airport hotel.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Some exciting things going on. Pardon me for a moment. I, in my haste, skipped over one of our updates, our community advisory committee, Mr. Yatrovsky. You're down to my left, so I do apologize, sir. you're on.
Good morning. I was wondering if you were giving away any free samples on those trips to Los Angeles. We last met in April, and our next meeting is in June. Just as a general promo, if any of you have local talent to recommend for membership on the Community Advisory Committee, please reach out to our staff liaison, Mr. Juan McLaren, or to Director Krim. We are very close now to 100%, but we have a limit of 2 to 3 year terms, and so there's always a rotation. And it's good to have a pool of talent to draw from for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, next up, Mr. Borden, good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Only one announcement. I'm sure some of you have seen at Senator's Day, Senator Warner announced our FAA funding for our master plan. So application should be completed within 4 to 6 weeks so we can begin that process. That's the only update.
Very good, thank you, sir. Mr. Crum, would you like to tee this one up for us?
Yes, our next agenda item will be a presentation from Jeff Berlisky of our HRTPO team on our Unified Planning Work Program, which outlines the work that we'll be doing on behalf of the HRTPO Board from July 1 of 2023 to June 30 of 2024. Jeff, I'll turn it over to you. This will be in action.
Yes, good morning. It's, as Mr. Crum mentioned, we're here to discuss with you the Unified Planning Work Program, in our parlance, the UPWP. This is a requirement of the federal planning process, updated annually, dimensioning and detailing the transportation planning work to be done in the region. This involves all the transportation parties through the region, and so details work for both the HRTPO, of course, but as well as our three transit partners, HRT, WADA, and Summit Transit, and also the Virginia Department of Transportation. And, you know, the 190 some odd pages that you have is really representative of the cooperation, input, and work of all these parties to pull this together. This is an extensive analysis that begins in December to get us to this point of approval here in May. And so I just want to thank all the parties that contributed to the update. As part of the document in the introduction, we go through the planning priorities, which you see are really reflective of what we see coming out of the federal processes and emerging trends. Later today, you're going to have a presentation on some of the equity efforts that are underway in the region, but it's very strongly emphasized in the federal process. Also, through the long-range planning, the scenario planning work that the long-range plan team has done over the last iteration, recently recognized in federal literature as best practice, and it's something we want to build on. Resilience, of course, very important in this region, and always looking to stay on the cutting edge of all these different areas. And so you see the planning priorities. The UPWP is, of course, going to focus on our core activities, the mandated activities that must be undertaken in the region. These are the long-range planning process, of course, both the long for the TPO as well as the rural areas. The Transportation Improvement Program, which will have a presentation on the latest iteration and update on that in just a little bit. Performance management requirements that we are required to report on that Keith Nichols' team provides great detail on each trail. And underlying them is, of course, the public participation. And as we continue to evolve that, wanting to make sure that all people have real and concrete opportunities to have input into the transportation planning decisions and processes undertaken through this organization. And so that has to be a forefront and a core activity in everything that we do and touch. The HRTPO work program, for those of you who have been at this table for some time, will recognize that beyond the core activities, we generally will undertake some special studies and analyses. Some of these have been ongoing, the regional connector study. Some touch regions, issues that are important to the region, the new analysis that's going on rail crossing with the port. You're hearing the record cargo, the importance of moving rail cargo through this region, and so that's very timely to that. As well as also each year, Dr. Case and his team seek to advance and support our member jurisdictions on smaller specific requests, and you see several of those listed here. One that's very interesting to note that since the pandemic, the increase in crash fatalities, and wanting to see that that's not unique to Hampton Roads, it's a national trend. We're trying to dissect and put some analysis behind what might be some of the factors driving those increases and certain mitigating strategies that might be considered, as well as continuing to look at electric vehicles and the charging infrastructure that will be needed as the shift continues, and supporting Hampton on a comprehensive planning effort and also a regional signage effort. So the fact that we carry this forward, providing service to our members' jurisdictions as best we can fit in. Of course, none of this happens without funding. The UPWP for FY 2024 outlines about 24 million, a little more than 24 million in total funding. The pie charts break it down in 2 ways, both by entity and funding source. The largest funded entity, of course, shown here is HRT, and that's really a factor of their transportation studies that they're doing for high capacity transit, both the Peninsula Bus Rapid Transit, the extension of Norfolk Light Rail, and a new analysis that will be starting soon of high capacity transit down to the Greenbrier area here in Chesapeake. So those really inflate the HRT numbers of those special study work. By funding source, you see our federal and state funding partners make up about 85, just under about 85%, federal slightly higher, but we're largely dependent on those federal and state funding sources. I saw Kevin Page standing a minute ago, but his regional funding also a very important funding source too. Transportation planning work in this region with the local matches, both here at the TPO and the transit agencies making up the balance of funding. I mentioned that the work on the UPWP begins in December of each year, and by April we have a draft program which we take to the technical committee to begin a public review process that began on April 5th of this year. Public comment period extended through the April 26th. No comments were received, and so they made a technical committee meeting a couple of weeks ago. TTAC reviewed the final document and recommending approval today to the board. And we're at the May 18th meeting here, and as Director Crum indicated, the new fiscal year beginning on July 1 with the initiation of the final document. So the recommendation before the board here today is to approve the final FY 2024 Unified Planning Work Program.
All right, any questions?
Sure. Slide 5, you mentioned planning for closures or crossings. Okay, so then what kind of closures have driven crossings?
This has been a task for a number of years growing up. I believe there was a Suffolk Bridge that was King's Bridge originally. And so it's worked past that we've had to look at if by action or need, there has to be some analysis of an unplanned closure. Recently, you had the 168 bridge. Yeah.
As you mentioned, this is a recurring study we do as part of our Transportation Operations Subcommittee. It's not for any particular planned closure that's going on, but this dates back to a decade ago. I believe it was the James River Bridge and the Mount Merrimack both got closed on the same weekend, and there was no coordination. And Carmageddon, I think we called it, as I recall. So our Transportation Operations Subcommittee at that point decided that was unacceptable. We couldn't, so moving forward, we want to make sure we had coordination between all the different jurisdictions, VDOT, cities, and all that to make sure this never happened again. So this is a recurring item we do to just make sure here are the procedures we have in place. We still agree that those are good. Should we update them? We update that analysis as part of it to see what would happen when you do have closures, but this is not for any specific closure plan in the future. Yes.
Mr. Shepherd, if you don't mind, you can a little bit closer to your mic. Any questions?
I asked whether this would include the tunnel flooding and stuff like that as part of the closure.
Yes, in this case, it's anything. In this case, it's anything that's planned. So I guess you would say flooding is a plan, but if something's flooded and then you close another crossing, what would be the impacts? Make sure we don't do it. It was not.
Thank you, Mr. Shepherd. Other questions? All right, it is an action item, so we will need action from the board to adopt the Unified Planning Work Program. So motion. Okay, motion to adopt by Mr. Tuck. Is there a second? Mr. Shepherd, a second. Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, no. And it is carried. We'll now move to our FY24 HRTPO budget. Mr. Crown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. HRTPO Board, pleased to be in front of you today to present our proposed budget for the upcoming fiscal year. So you've heard Jeff talk about the work activities that the HRTPO will be completing on your behalf. My part of this presentation is to talk about the budget to support that staff work. Today, the budget I'll be presenting to you, think about as a joint budget between the HRTPO and the HRPDC. Operationally, the HRPDC serves as the fiscal agent for the HRTPO board. We are a cohesive team that works together. The monies that flow through the HRPDC budget are used for the local match for your transportation planning funding that supports a great deal of our work here on your behalf at the HRTPO. So I'll walk through for you a presentation that will be provided to this board today, requesting your support and action, and then will also be discussed later today at 12:30 by the HRPDC commission that will be meeting here. So just as Jeff talked about with the work program, this budget covers the fiscal year from July 1, 23 to June 30, 24. We have a personnel and budget committee consisting of the leadership of both the HRPDC and the HRTPO boards, which met on April the 20th and brings this recommended budget forward to you today. We had discussion of this budget at your Chief Administrative Officer meeting on May the 3rd, and then as I mentioned, we'll be requesting approval by both of our boards today. This is your Personnel and Budget Committee. It consists of the chairs of both the HRTPO and HRPDC. It consists of the vice chairs of the HRTPO and HRPDCs, as well as the HRPDC treasurer and a Chief Administrative Officer, both one from the Peninsula and one from the South Side. There was a great deal of information that was included in the agenda distribution. I won't go through this with you today, but we did provide this to you in advance. It contains all of the back information on the budget in terms of revenues, in terms of expenditures, in terms of what the budget means to your locality specifically, in terms of fiscal implications for your locality's participation in these budgets and programs. One of the things that's important when you think about our organization, we really have two very broad categories of revenue. There are things that support our operations, so those are revenues that come to us that we can use to pay for staff, we can use to pay for this building and the operations of this building. It's used to support the activities that we do on your behalf. The second part, though, are things we call pass-through. And as we're very proud that more and more you're coming to us and you're asking us, can you be the fiscal agent for projects? They might be state-funded projects, they might be federally funded projects. And some of those projects, when you think about things such as broadband and fiber that we're building around the region now, our housing program, even Ask HR Green or environmental education program, et cetera, some of those monies come to us, but they pass through and then we send them out to support construction projects or other efforts that we're doing. So we're seeing the amount of pass-through funding in our budget growing, and this year it's going to be almost $37 million of money that hits our budget, but we're passing it through to actually do good things out in our region and out in your communities. I always like to show this slide because it shows a little bit of a picture, and it's not the best one, but this is sort of the budget trend in terms of revenue that we've seen for planning district commissions over the past 20 years. I'll see if I can use my pointer here, but if you look back to the year 2000, you can see back in 2001. Our regional organization received over $360,000 from the Commonwealth of Virginia. If you fast forward to today, we're at 100, call it 166, rounding up. This has been an alarming trend for us. Even though we're formed by the Commonwealth of Virginia, state funding for planning district commissions has decreased substantially over the last 20 years. The impacts for the TPO is this is some of the money we can use to use this local match for the PL funding, which is why our budgets are so closely tied together. You can see also down the left side, you can see where our per capita membership dues have been. Back in the time when there was a recession, we went from 82 cents per capita down to 80 cents. Today, in 2023, we're at 90 cents, and I'll talk with you more about that as we go finish up the presentation. So just a couple of pie charts that were included in your agenda showing our operating expenditure budget across the different program areas. We also show you our revenue and where that revenue is coming from. As you can see, we pull in a lot of federal and state grant money. Federal grants, transportation, water related, and other infrastructure related really make up the majority of our incoming revenue. So one of the things that's unique for us as a regional organization in Virginia is just like all of you, we own the building and we own the grounds. This building hosts as many as 150 regional meetings a year. And we're proud of that. This is the community's building. This is the region's building. With that, we do have a responsibility to keep the building up to par. This was built in the late 1980s. Very proud. Andrew and Chris are probably in the room or getting things ready for lunch, but they've done some great work this year. You know, you see our information monitors that we've done to modernize our building. We've had upgrades done to our HVAC system. We've replaced a very dated agency vehicle this year. We've converted all the lighting to LED fixtures. You see the improvements to the 757 room, fire detection system. I won't read through all of those, but we're really excited about some of the work that we've been able to complete during the last year. But for this upcoming budget year, we've got some added expenses. They start with our websites. Our websites are incredibly dated. They just aren't the front door that we really want to have to our organizations. We have a great proposal that's going to not only update the websites for PDC and TPO. I see Kevin Page in the back. You're going to get a new HRTPO website as part of this. We're going to get a new broadband authority website. So we're really excited about that. But our portion of that cost is going to be about $80,000. You're going to hear from Quan McLaurin very soon, and we're excited to really stand up our DEI program, and we need to be able to support that. The carpeting that we have in the building really is getting to the point where it needs some attention. We really rely on geographic information system technology as the backbone of our organization. We've got to update our telephone system. Just like all of you, our health insurance premiums went up. So if you add that all together, you're at about $500,000 of additional costs this year. And we have some other needs. Our skylights are leaking. We had a little bit of a problem a couple weeks ago. We've got to get those fixed. Our parking lot, we're looking to make into a best management practice, but it's going to need some attention. And our building has the original windows. So these are just some things that we talked about in Personnel and Budget Committee that we're really going to have to take a hard look at. Some of our challenges, frankly, are the lack of flexible funding streams. Every time we go get a grant, we don't have the ability to take transportation money and have those people work on water. They are funded by transportation. Likewise, I can't bring people that are working on sea level rise and water resources and have them work on transportation items. So we don't have a lot of flexible funding streams. But staff salaries, staff retention is a real challenge for us, just like it is for all of you. Over the last couple of years, we've lost 3 people to other organizations or localities within our region. And that's something that we really want to pay some attention to. I won't read through all these, but they probably look very familiar to what you have at home. Technology, cash flow for us to be able to match some of these grants is really important. And when we do some of these projects, we have to front the money and then wait 3 to 4 months for reimbursement of that money. So we've got to be able to have the cash flow to be able to support some of those efforts. I mentioned the dedicated funding sources. I won't go over that again, but what that leads us is about 25% of our revenues are available that we can apply to these different assignments that come up throughout the year. They aren't supported by grant programs. We also budget. We have great relationship. Kevin, HRTPO, thank you for that partnership. You're probably aware we support HRTPO with our financial department. We support with our HR department, and some of our communications work. That's a great partnership. We have the same arrangement with the Southside Network, Broadband Authority, and Harumpha. And those organizations reimburse us for that time and even our overhead expenses. So that's a great partnership that we all have. So for our budget for FY24, we are proposing a budget that is just short of $7.4 million for our operating budget. The majority of our costs are personnel related. 82% of our costs are people and the cost to support those people. The Personnel and Budget Committee is recommending to you a budget that increases your member per capita dues from 90 cents per capita to an even $1 per capita. You have in your agenda package a chart that shows the impact on that increase for each of you as local governments. Our budget projects that the state base allocation will remain the same at $165,943. Of course, we don't have a state budget, but we're budgeting that as flat. And we are consistent with where our localities are based on input from our CAO committee, providing a 5% general wage increase for our staff, effective July 1 of 2023. That, again, is very consistent with the levels that all of our localities are providing. Again, this is the chart that's in your agenda. It shows each locality down the side. You can see what your contribution is to us currently at 90 cents. We show the differences to go to 95 by locality. So we show the difference to go to an even $1 that's recommended by your Personnel and Budget Committee. So, Mr. Chairman, with that briefing, our recommended action today would be to request that the board consider approval of the proposed 2024 budget as recommended by the Personnel and Budget Committee, which includes an increase in the member per capita dues assessment from 90 cents per capita to $1 per capita. Mr. Chairman, I'll send it back over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Crum. I do want to point something out. I've made contact with several of our state delegates and senators. I mentioned this to Mr. Crum as well. And their response to me on the budget was, they don't even think about the regional systems that are in place. And so we've got to do a much better job, each of us individually and us as a region, with our state legislators to make sure that they give us consideration for increasing of funds. It's very important, to our region. And now that we know that it's not a whole lot of consideration for that, I think if we work together to talk with them, and I've made some preliminary inquiries about increasing some of those things. Mr. Crum hasn't gotten any word from them yet on that. I simply asked them to increase about 50,000 immediately, and of course, that kind of got hemmed and hawed on. But anyway, so we need everybody to kind of help us with those things, because you can see the significant decrease over the years. So that's my only comment. Questions, Mr. Hipple?
Yes, a couple questions. I know most of us have already done our budgets and prepared our budgets, so this is coming at this time of year. Makes it tougher because you got to go back and readjust what we've already done. I would suggest from this point on that maybe the budget committee meets in January to prepare everything so we can get it into the counties and the cities to make sure that they have enough time to plan what their budget will be. Because I know that, I think Norfolk, Mary, you can help me, but I think Norfolk, if they take it out of their general fund, they have to give the same amount to the school. So it costs them twice. Is that correct, Mr. Mayor? I think with Norfolk, if you take it out of your general fund to make this, that you have to then give the same amount to the school. So that, affects some of our jurisdictions different than the rest of us. And I know we're not talking about a great deal, but when you start doubling it starts adding up with all the other things we're working on. Also, state allocations, and I know you talked, but we talked about this for years now, and we're at the same point we were 10 years ago. And what are we going to do from this point on to encourage the state to start supporting this organization like they should? So, from 365,000 down to 165, that's a big cut. And we're all covered. But it's also helping the state as well. And we're doing a lot of work, not only for localities, but for the state as well. So the state should start coming back with a little here and there. I'm not asking them to come back totally, but, over time, maybe they can come back totally. We've had an increase in 2022 to 85, and then increase in 23 to 90, and now 24 to 95. We're thinking about another $1. I would like to have a projection of over the next several years. What are we looking at as far as, okay, in 2 more years, are we going to adjust again? Are we going to adjust again next year? Or kind of project out so that all our jurisdictions know that, okay, we're looking at another 2 years coming up, 50 cents, whatever. And kind of give us an outlook so we can plan a little bit better. We're looking at about, for all of us, about 300,000 with increase at 90. So, my biggest thing would be to get this out ahead of all of us making our budgets and voting on our budgets, and now we got to go back and where do we get these funds? Not we can't get these funds. Where do we get the funds? And not that this isn't a vital component to what we do. I'm not saying that or putting blame on anyone. I'm just saying we could do business a little different and would help our jurisdictions out. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Mr. Shepard.
Yeah, your county supports the budget, whichever one it is. It's a little confused here. We do our budgets in May. We got our support very quickly in May. Some people will, I think, to April maybe. So we ought to be able to plan sooner than this. In fact, like anybody else, you have to get it in earlier so we can figure it out. But so I don't quite understand the difference on page 13. I think it's slide 13 between the what do they call it, a salmon color list and then the proposed is $195, $1. So who proposed the 95? Who proposed the $1?
I went to the personnel, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
your executive director went to the Personnel and Budget Committee recommending a nickel increase to 95. The Personnel and Budget Committee said to me, Bob, really, if you look at the needs, they recommended we ask for the even dollars. So the total increase would be the $175,184. Mr. Chairman, I'll send that back to you on behalf of the Personnel and Budget.
Yes, sir, Mr. Kravitz. I believe in that meeting, I was one of the ones that recommended going up a little bit higher because if you look at the span of the TPO and the PDC and the different costs that are rising, it really doesn't make sense to raise it year after year after year. We need to properly forecast certain needs and then, kind of take a bigger bite now on some of the things, improvements on the building, the parking lot, and some of those other things that are some pretty desperate things that we need to make sure we're taking care of. So that's kind of where that came from. Rather than every year looking at it, just go ahead now and look at over the next couple of years what some of the things are. And instead of every year coming back with a nickel, let's go ahead and figure these things out now so that we're not coming back next year and looking at another increase or the year after that, another increase.
Isn't that part of what we do here? I mean, we're supposed to be source of money in it, so we're putting on cruise control. I don't mind it all.
Sure,
I'm just trying to understand the rationale when the executive committee, people who actually know what they need, they really want to tell us exactly what they need, so we don't have to, kind of worry about it. If we're just projecting to the future, that's fine too. But I don't think we made a big change in a decade or so. And but anyway, I just needed to understand.
Sure. If we could talk, Mr. Brown, you want to respond?
Yes, my recommendation for a nickel showed the Personnel and Budget Committee what we could do in terms of some of the improvements with the nickel, an extra 5 cents per capita, and then what we wouldn't be able to do. When they look at the things that we would not be able to do, that's when Mr. McCarty, but not just Mr. McCarty, other members of the P&B committee said to me, Bob, we have some needs. There were comments like, you talked to us about skylights last year, but we deferred.
That's correct. That's one of the ones.
And here we are. So when they looked at what we wouldn't be able to accomplish with technology, with the building, and frankly, to be able to give our staff the same level of staff raises the localities were, that's when they directed me to bring forth a proposal for a new development.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Tuck?
Thank you. I was going to ask what would be necessary to try and fund the $45,000 for the sunroofs and $50,000 for the windows, total $95,000. And I'm not sure if this increase of 90 cents to $1 would do that or not, but I was going to make an appeal if it didn't, that we try and get that done, because I'm not here on a daily basis. I'm only here maybe once a month. But, to have a building that's falling apart, that's the individuals who are working here that have leaking skylights, the window issue, something that needs to be addressed, not kicked down the road for another year. So if this increase to $1, even as untimely as the presentation of the budget seems to be for us who have already approved our budget, it still seems like it's a necessary increase. So I just don't know if this increase to $1 would include those two things.
If I may, so the increase to $1 would allow us, we have a plan to go in with before with satellites. We would be able to do that. We'd be able to take care of some of our technology, particularly with GIS. We'd be able to move forward with our targeting. We believe, will give us a chance to do an assessment and some bids for our windows, and we can build that in the next budget year. But going the extra 10 cents per capita will allow us to do many of those things that are most critical.
As former chair, I can recall, I think it was last year, that when we were looking at the budget, some of the same issues in terms of things that need to be done, things that were put off. And so the question becomes, how much longer do we continue to put those things off?
Good point, Mr. Tuck. That's one of the things we talked about. It's the repeating conversations. Point well taken. Other questions?
Question, just some comments.
Yes, sir.
Per capital assessment for operations is certainly understandable, but per capital assessment for capital projects, it really puts cities like Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, and Norfolk paying more to to take care of the plant, the physical plant. Don't know if that's the right formula when it comes to capital projects, because you're going to have capital projects as long as you're going to build it. And the building is small. If you have assessment of all the mechanical system, structural, parking, you name some, this is going to be an ongoing expense. And so I don't know if this raising the capital assessment to take care of capital projects is the right formula. I'm very concerned. Most localities are cutting real estate taxes and the cost for us to run our cities. Getting great from New Virginia or some co-op electrical. Our bills are going up. Our residents are asking for more. We're trimming our budgets. So I don't know if this should do a tax increase is what it is on the citizens that they represent. I don't know if it's the time to be raising taxes on our citizens.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Mr. Gillette. Mr. Dodd, go ahead.
Well, just a voice from the rural area, since we're mostly agricultural, and we have cut and trimmed to keep our real estate rate the same. We did a lot of cutting, and we had to look at every penny. Our share is, in the scheme of things, there's not a whole lot of money sitting in this room, but sitting in the other room down the road, it is. And I'd just like to have that on a matter of record. I don't know if you can do an either or, carpet or skylights, or they're the kinds of things that we had to look at. We don't have a lot of revenue flow coming through the business world. How reside, it's all coming from agriculture. So I'm sure you took that into consideration, but I just wanted to comment on that.
Thank you, Mr. Gillette. Mr. Shepherd?
Yeah.
We do not have a building capital improvement program. We have a plan. We have a strategic plan with our needs. We have those prioritized. I shared all that with the Personnel Budget Committee. To Mayor Alexander's point, it could be an opportunity for us to look at what that type of call it a building maintenance fund might look like. And as we look at next year's budget, perhaps offer another potential funding source. I feel, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I do want to say, and I want to say that I respect and understand everything that everybody's presented today, and it is difficult. I will say though that the ROI on this money, whether it's the ability for us to provide fiscal management support for almost $6 billion of transportation projects, or the fiscal management support that we provide for right now, over $45 million of fiber construction in this region. And I can go on and on and on in terms of regional programs that actually save money. On behalf of our organization and our team, I do really believe that it's money well spent, and that the ROI back to the communities on these investments are quite significant. So thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Shepherd.
The point here is that it seems that, you know, if you look at government's handling different ways, and I don't care how small or how big they are, but if you keep taking your capital projects, and you keep pushing them down the road, then they become critical projects. Okay? I'm not saying roads are equivalent to a school or to the HVAC. You just got to be aware, and this committee, and more than just a few folks, need to be aware of things that are going to be popping up down the road. So we don't have to supply, we got to know that it needs to be done. And I agree with Mayor Alexander that, you know, that maybe the formula is not right, and that's, I think, part of the formula is being surprised by whatever needs to be done to the building. We cannot forget here, though, that all the major road projects that you have, that we are working on the billions of dollars, started with this organization, and us being able to find a place to meet. Okay, I mean, you got to go back to that, and the staff, not, you know, we come in here and get coffee and sit around and talk to it, but the staff has to work in an environment to be able to be done. It has the technology and the environment to do it. So I think we can all appreciate that. And I don't know, in relative scheme of things, I think the citizens are getting a pretty good bang for the buck out of this organization. And I think it needs to be approved, but in the future, I think that this cuts down on the consternation with folks from the rural community or from the big city, just know what they're looking at and that we know what's going to happen. So that calls for planning for your guys, part of do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Paul, well taken. Mr. Hawes?
Thank you. A lot of good comments. Considering the formula, timing, ROI. As a member of the Budget Personnel Committee, I supported going to the dollar because I really think that what we do here is an extension of what we do in the city, what we do individually in our own communities, as Mr. Shepherd pointed out. The work here that we help support the HRTPO and TPO, PDC, coastal resiliency. I mean, there's so much work going on around this table through this organization that really benefits us and saves us as individual community. I think it makes it worth the investment. Right?
Thank you, sir. Mr. Pizzani?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I echo Mr. Gillette's and Mr. Alexander's comments. Gloucester County is a rural county, and everybody who knows me and our board of supervisors knows that I'm so tax averse and purpose. And we tackled our budget where some entities wanted a robotic lawnmower for certain parts of the county. You know, that's a want, not a need. I'm just questioning, whether we should just go back and take an inside look at this building. And I'm not impugning the work this organization does. I mean, this is a great organization. It does a lot of things for our region. But skylights, I mean, I just heard you put LED lights in here. Does the skylight enhance the ability for this building to function, as opposed to just basically putting, LED lights in? Some of those things you have to question. And for a small county like Gloucester County and Southampton County, that's a significant increase for us as well. And so we have to fight that with our citizens every day. I know the larger cities, it's okay. You guys are big, but for us little mosquitoes on an elephant's rear end, it's significant.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Tucker?
Yeah, I would like to speak to that one. I think the issue is not putting them in, it's that they're here now and they're leaking.
Correct.
And I think the concern is, if you want to try and cover it over, I guess, with asphalt shingles or whatever, you got to address that matter. I think for the folks who are here for the building, as Mr. Shepherd said, it's been here however many years. It's a place that we meet. There are lots more things that happen here, even as far as regional meetings besides TPO, HRTPO, ROMPA, PDC. There is a regional subcommittee on resilience. We have a housing related subcommittee that meets here. Lots and lots of things happen here. And so I think it's important for the people who are employed here to have an environment where they're not concerned about even health issues because of being on a leaking sunroof, or maybe issues related to the windows. And I know this is not an equal thing for every locality in terms of perhaps what we perceive to get out of it, or even for the way we do this formula, perhaps is more of a hardship on some localities than it is on others. But I think we're all in it together, and whether or not we try and do it this year, I think one thought is to try and form a committee to look at capital improvements down the road, because we're going to need it every year. But then we also need to figure out then what's going to be that income stream for financing those things. Whether or not you take it apart from the operating and set it up for a CIP program, you still have to address what's going on now. To put it off another year, I'm going to vote to do this, but it may be that the majority says, hey, let's take that out and let's do it next year. We've got to somehow come up with a strategy of financing what's probably going to be ongoing improvements because of the age of this building and its needs. Not just building itself in the parking lot and probably wait, at least for what I'm concerned, but trying to maintain a healthy environment for the people who come to work here every day. I think is important, and we need to recognize that. And the things that this organization does for our localities, I think, that's something for us to go back and sell. The people are probably not aware of it, but I just think it's something that has to be done.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Other questions or comments? Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just listening to all the comments, it seems quite evident to me that the prudent thing to do within the budget is to create a capital account. Right now, you're proposing an increase based on a lot of capital improvements versus operating expenses. Operating expenses are going to be fairly consistent. Your capital requests are going to have ups and downs. So I think the prudent thing to do, to Mayor Tuck's point and everybody else, would be to approve the dollar increase to take care of the immediate needs, but moving forward, definitely separate those two functions so it doesn't involve the rate. If it gets to the point where there's a major capital improvement and you have to do an additional assessment to each one of the cities on a proportional basis, as long as that is proposed back in that January or February timeline to allow for localities to make allowances for that within their budget, it becomes a one-time expense rather than relying on these numbers later. So that would be my suggestion moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Yes, and I concur with Mike and Donnie and what we're saying, that the process should improve. But I think one of the things I would like to point out that the city of Virginia Beach had to make a decision a couple of years ago when our building 1 became a sick building. When you get leaks like that, then you get mold, and it really makes a health hazard for the employees that are there. And so between mold and asbestos, old HVAC and everything, we had to condemn basically the building and build a new $50+ million place because it was almost impossible because of the deterioration of the building. It's better it's like a Fram Oil commercial, pay me now or pay me a lot later. So I support the increase and also the recommended changes in the procedures.
Thank you, sir. Other questions or comments? Mr. Crum, is there anything you felt I need to speak to that you've heard?
First off, I think very consistent with some of our current conversation at Personnel and Budget Committee. I think the suggestion to create a capital account, as mentioned by several of the mayors, is a very good one. I can work with P&B to make certain, they'll give you options and what funding formulas might look like for that. I think the opportunity to begin our process earlier in the year for Personnel and Budget Committee does improve the process, and we can work on that. And sir, I would, however, request consideration by the board for the increase from the $90 to the $1 to allow us to start that process forward and then move forward next year with that revised process.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Crown. Board members, what's your pleasure?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the budget with the dollar increase.
Second. I'd like to have that language added, although I know that we're not specifying the dollar amount for the capital program or the reserve account, but I think we should wait to get the language. It's just language.
We'll take it. Okay. Would you amend your?
Yeah. So I didn't quite hear all of what he said, but I'll amend it because I did say a dollar increase and really it's just a 10-cent increase. I'd also like
Mr. Mayor, does that meet your? Okay. All right, that's the motion.
Language for the capital program, replacement reserve account, have the right terminology. Lawyers
they can figure that out. We got the spirit of it. Would you like to second that motion? All right, so it's been properly moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion before you signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. And it is carried. Thank you so much for.
Thank you for the support and conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Crown. All right, we will now move to item 17, our FY 24-27 Transportation Improvement Program, the tip final, and that's Mr. Mahaley. Good morning.
I'm not asking for any money.
We appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to you all. Still good morning. Federal regulations require metropolitan planning organizations, or MPOs, to maintain a consistent and accurate transportation improvement program. I know that's not or TIP. And so what I'm here today to present to you is our new TIP. This is the HRTPO FY 24-27 TIP. This is the final. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at this the document, there's a a few door stops out there in the lobby. You can grab one of those if you like. And we also have a web link in your agenda. There's over 500 pages that we're starting with. That'll increase by the time we get to 27. But it's a great document. It's one of our core requirements. It's something that I highly encourage you to look at. At the end of this presentation, I'm going to direct you to a website that you can take a look at some of these things. I'll provide some more detail on that in a minute. But anyway, this process, the overarching process is our regional project planning process. So we start with our long-range transportation plan. Currently, we're under the 2045. That's where a lot of planning, the initial planning goes in, and we identify funding and reasonably available funds for all of the projects. The projects that go into our TIP must come from the long-range plan, either directly or by reference. Now, the TIP, our team is a program team, and we're the ones that kind of maintain, make sure these projects keep going, at least on our end, administratively. Refined scope is identified, schedules, and real money is identified too. So in other words, the money's in the bank, and we get to program it. Let's get these projects moving and going. That's the last phase here. So that's just a very, very high-level overview of the regional planning process. The TIP itself, our HRTPO TIP, it's a multi-year program, and we're embarking on our next multi-year program. And it's a 4-year program, and it's developed in cooperation with our transportation agencies at the state level and all our local transportation operators. Now, this is code here. Before any federally funded or regionally significant surface transportation project can be built in the Hampton Roads MPA, it must be included in the current TIP that's been approved by you all. I wanted to draw your attention to this artwork. This has been around a little bit. I think we have it in the hall. This is from one of our former PDC employees, Mike Long. And I just love using this graphic. It just really gives a really good look at the diversity of the transportation infrastructure at Hampton Roads. But anyway, I just want to give a shout out to him. I've always enjoyed his artwork. So, a lot of boxes here, a lot going on. This is TIP development. Now, this could have been a lot more. I tried to whittle this down as much as possible. I don't want to bore you all to death, but I thought it was a good idea to come ahead and kind of go through this. So we start this process out in, we started this June of last year in 2022. So VDOT, the RPT, TPO, the transit agencies get together, and we work on a draft list of projects. And once again, these projects have to come from the LRTP. Then we put this draft tip list, once we identify this tip list, then we put that out to the public again and to our stakeholders to get some feedback. And then this all goes into our draft tip document. That's the giant document that you'll see out in the lobby. And that goes out for a 30-day public review. And we did receive quite a few comments, and those are listed in the appendices of the tip document. And we responded to those documents in the appendices as well. Our public involvement team did a great job getting the word out on the tip, and we're thankful for that and for our team in doing that. Now, you see the red box around the next one. Next shape here. This is what we're doing today. It's the final tip document. Hopefully, we can get an approval for that so we can move forward with the rest of the work that needs to be done. And then this goes to the governor for approval, and it gets included without change in the statewide transportation improvement program. Money. So here's a big old pie chart here of the total funding allocations for the years 2024 through 27. And you can see here the number one by far funding source is HRTPO. So it's about 52% of the total of $2.8 billion for this TIP. Now this is what it is right now. As we move forward into 2027, we'll be identifying additional dollars. In the second highest one is the NHPP funding, that's the National Highway Program. Next is state funding, followed by regional revenue sharing, RCP and CMEC, which you're familiar with, and local, and there's others, quite a few there. Excuse me there. The project types, now I kind of try to combine some of these project types. You'll notice that by far the largest is reconstruction with added capacity. It seems to be a favorite project. Quite a few safety projects. And you'll see to the left, the second bar is facilities for bicycle and pedestrians. Now, typically we would not have those projects in the TIP. In the past, they've been considered group projects. Now, a group project just means it's under a category. It's not listed specifically in the TIP as an individual project. But there's been a regional emphasis on bicycle and pedestrian facilities, within the past few years and into the future. We just wanted to make sure that those projects that are underway or planning to be underway are identified in our TIP. The next item here, this is our partner rail and public transportation funding. This is another 108 projects you'll see in the TIP. Total revenues listed are $178.2 million. And I just provided a sampling here of a couple of HRT projects, just so you can see what type of information we have available in the TIP on our DRPT projects. All right, so our TIP development schedule, this is, as I said, it started back in June, July 2022, when the entities got together and produced the high-level milestones for all stakeholders. Then we met with VDOT and started talking about the project lists. By the end of August of 22, we did our initial data quality review, and through November and into December, VDOT provided us our planned obligations and our final TIP list. We had a staff review, and we posted that draft project list to the HRTPO website. We did not receive any comments on that. March and April, the draft TIP document was made available, as I mentioned. We did get some response from that. A conformity determination was initiated since we're an orphan maintenance area. And if you want to know more information about that, there's the agenda item in our item number 20 that talks all about the whole conformity process. And then today, we're hoping to receive the approval of our final TIP document, and then submitting that to VDOT, Federal Programs Management Division, DRPT, to be included in the statewide TIP. June, July process, FHWA, FTA, and EPA. We hope to have the finding of conformity. July, the VDOT and DRPT compile the final step, submit that to FHWA, FTA for approval. And then October 1st of 2023, our new TIP would go into effect. This is what I mentioned earlier. This is our current TIP website. If you haven't been to this, I highly suggest you take a look. So you can click on that link there. These presentations will be available today. And what you'll find is a wealth of information, not just on the TIP, but some other projects and other things that the programming team does. You can contact me or Kathy and Robert if you have any specific questions. But as you see here in this graphic, on the left-hand side here, you visit the TIP website. If you wanted to take a look at all of the projects that you have ongoing, at least the MAC projects, just type in your jurisdiction, hit search, and it'll outline every project that you have going on in your jurisdiction. And then if you click on the map to the right, it's another way to look up your projects. click on either a line segment or an icon, and it'll pull up the full TIP project sheet for any particular project you have. It has obligations, allocations, description, a map of it. It's just a lot of great information. This website will be updated along with our other website updates here this fall. But it is active right now, and I just really think it'd be a great idea. Just take a look at that, and if there's anything you think you might want to see in there, any information you might want us to add to that, let us know that as well. We'd be happy to do that as we update the website here in the fall. So today, the recommended action is to approve the 24-27 Transportation Improvement Program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mahaley. Any questions? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion to approve the final tip that's before you this morning. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Lucas. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. And it is carried. Thank you so much. Bob, why don't you tee this one up for us?
Absolutely. So I want to welcome to the podium Quan McLaurin. You met Quan at your last meeting, but Quan has been with us since February. Quan is our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Title VI and Civil Rights person. What a great addition to the team. He's hit the ground running. We thought it'd be great for him to give you a brief overview of some of his work and some of the journey we're going to be on together as we move forward in the next couple months. So Quan, welcome to the podium.
Thank you, appreciate it. So as already mentioned, many of you have already seen, we received a Title VI compliance review a couple months ago. So my goal today is just to give you a little bit of additional background on that, provide some context, and then hopefully show you the roadmap for the coming months. If you have any questions, I'll be here as a resource for you. So to give you just a little bit of background on what Title VI is, I'm sure many of us here are aware of that, but just in case, this stems from the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and basically just purports that any entity that receives federal monies needs to be non-discriminatory in the administration of its operations. Okay, and so since we receive federal funds, and many of you as our sub-recipients receive those federal funds, we need to make sure that we are in compliance. There are a couple other compliance structures that also relate to us, such as environmental justice, limited English proficiency, ADA, and some others. That information is there for you. It will be included as an attachment if you want to read further. So I won't go too in depth on that. You may be asking, what does that governance structure look like? Who conducts that compliance review for us, and how does that all work? So our compliance review is conducted by the federal body that gives us the most money. For us, that is the Federal Highway Administration. They then conduct the compliance review for VDOT, and then VDOT then conducts that review for us. So we can see here that our most recent one was received on February 14th. In that review, we were given until March 15th to address a couple of deficiencies and some advisory comments for our Title VI program. As was already mentioned, and as many of you know, I just started February 1st, so that wasn't quite enough time to address all of those issues. I did send an extension request on March 9th, and then most recently, I've sent another extension request for us to address all of these concerns up to November 15th and included a detailed timeline. Today, I'll be going over a condensed version of that timeline. However, if you would like a copy of that detailed timeline, you can feel free to reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to provide that to you and go over that more in depth. Be warned, it is several pages long. So if you have that time, we can do that. You may be asking, what was in that compliance review? I want to go ahead and break that down for you by section. So Title VI administration, hire Title VI administrator, I'm here, already checked off, okay? Create a Title VI plan for the PDC and update the one for the TPO. create a streamlined Title VI process and complaint form that is uniform across all of our websites and in our Title VI plan. Ensure that all of PDC and TPO staff, as well as the board members, which include all of you, have Title VI training. We will be sending out some information in the coming weeks about training that will be available. Our wonderful partners at VDOT are working with the Federal Highway Administration to get training available for us right here in this room so that it is as accessible and easy for everyone. Limited English proficiency, ensuring that we have an updated plan for that, and then also that we have translation services. Public involvement, ensuring that those measures are in line with the Federal Highway Administration standards. We received an advisory comment for staffing to ensure that we continue to work towards having staff that is representative of the region. Our assurances, we have already addressed that back in March, and that was just ensuring that those appendices are included in all agreements. Involvement with the PDC, making sure that we have more Title VI involvement with the PDC. And then lastly, any program that we do, and this is Title VI or any other program, you're going to do it, you want to do it well, you want to make sure that you have some good metrics that you're measuring, and goals that you're setting. So we will have a goal and accomplishments report to present by the end of the federal fiscal year. This actually allowed us to have an updated approach to how we look at Title VI for the organization. Before, it was more of a disjointed approach between PDC and TPO, and now we have the opportunity to combine our Title VI approach and program and just have one for the PDC and the TPO. This will help to reduce internal and external confusion, improve the effectiveness of the program and plan, and make it a lot easier to update. So here you can see our proposed timeline. Make sure that I have this here. You'll see a couple colors here, but I'm gonna go section by section. So you'll see this goldish yellow color here. These are things that we've already completed. Again, I'm here. We have the assurances sent in. These red boxes here are very important for you as the board to see. In July, you will be receiving the draft Title VI plan and some other associated documents for your review at that July board meeting. And then in October, you'll be given the opportunity to take action on those items. Also in July, we will have our translation services officially procured and in place. It'll actually probably be sooner. I have the contract on my desk right now, and it is currently under review. And then our public comment period does start in July as well. And then, as you can see in November up here, that's when everything will actually be fully in place and implemented. And lastly, we have our ongoing period over here. And something important to understand about Title VI is that it's ever evolving and changing. So it's not something that we do one and done. It's something that we continue to improve upon as an organization. And some examples of that are staffing and our training. Before I finish out here, I know some of you have seen this on your tables, and there's a poster out there. Juneteenth is right around the corner, and that is a very significant event for our region, especially when you consider that some of the first enslaved people were here in our region. And so it's important that we acknowledge and we highlight the cultural significance to us, and that we take that time to reflect and to really celebrate the liberation journey of Black Americans here in our nation and the significance for us in this region. So if you as a locality or any of your partner organizations have a Juneteenth event coming up, please, I encourage you, reach out. We'd love to have that included in our regional Juneteenth calendar. Thank you. Are there any questions that anyone may have at this time?
Any questions from anyone? Mr. McLaurin, thank you so much, and we're glad to have you part of the team. Thank you, sir. All right, Mr. Crum, I think we're going to set aside item 19 for our July meeting. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Mr. Crum, why don't you take us through the consent agenda?
Absolutely. So you have today's consent agenda before you. Probably one of the more significant things being, as John Haley mentioned, approval of the 24 to 27 transportation improvement program. You see some other items there, as well as some important tip amendments to key projects advancing. Mr. Chairman, I recommend that the board take action to approve today's consent agenda.
Board members?
Motion for approval?
Been moved and seconded. Any other discussion on it? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it is carried. Bob, why don't you walk us through the remaining items?
So included is your 3-month tentative schedule. As a reminder, the TPO board does not meet in June. That will be your HRTPO and HRTPO meeting month. You have some of our minutes from our advisory committee meetings, some information as an FYI. Sir, I would recommend you call for any new business before moving to adjourn.
Okay. Is there any new business today? I do want to mention one thing. If you are on social media, Matt and the folks here do a great job on getting our social media stuff up and running. And I want to encourage you, go on social media, like those pages, share those pages. There's a wealth of information to keep our citizens involved in and alert on everything the TPO and PDC does. Mr. Crump.
And if I, just one more item, Mr. Chairman. So our PDC meeting will begin at 12:30. But we have lunch for everyone, whether you're staying or not, or if you need to run to another meeting. Please stop over behind our reception area in the 757 room. We have tables set up, plenty of lunch for everyone. So thank you, sir.
Seeing no other business, thank you guys for coming this month, and we'll see you again. We're adjourned.